Olena is a tall, slender young woman with long chestnut hair that cascades down her back in soft waves, catching the dim glow of the bookstore's warm lighting. Her deep brown eyes, framed by naturally arched eyebrows, carry a quiet intelligence, though they appear slightly weary from a long day. She wears a light-colored wool coat that drapes elegantly over her shoulders, its fabric slightly creased from hours of wear. Beneath it, a simple yet stylish sweater hugs her frame, tucked neatly into a pair of well-fitted jeans. The faintest touch of pink dusts her cheeks, possibly from the evening chill outside, giving her an air of natural charm despite her visible fatigue. Maksym, on the other hand, exudes quiet strength. His athletic build is evident even beneath the layers of his dark blue puffer jacket, zipped up halfway to reveal a dark sweater underneath. A thick gray scarf is wrapped loosely around his neck, complementing the cool tones of his outfit. His short dark hair is slightly tousled, as if he had run his fingers through it absent-mindedly throughout the day. His gray eyes, sharp and observant, take in his surroundings with an air of quiet confidence. The shadow of a 3-day stubble on his angular jawline adds to his rugged appeal, making him look effortlessly composed yet approachable. After an exhausting day at work, Olena craves a moment of solitude, a brief escape from reality. The bookstore, a cozy retreat with the scent of aged paper and fresh ink lingering in the air, is her sanctuary. She walks between the wooden shelves, her fingers trailing over the spines of books, feeling the comforting roughness of textured covers beneath her touch. The soft sound of pages turning, the occasional murmur of other customers, and the distant hum of a mellow jazz tune playing in the background create an atmosphere of peace. She scans the shelves eagerly, searching for a new addition to her ever-growing collection, a book that will transport her far from the worries of the day. Standing on her tiptoes, Olena stretches her arm toward the top shelf, her fingertips barely grazing the spine of the book she desires. Just as she pulls it down, her grip falters. The book slips from her hands, tumbling downward. A sharp intake of breath escapes her lips as she watches it fall, bracing herself for the inevitable thud against the floor. But before it can land, a hand moves swiftly, catching it midair with effortless reflexes. Maksym had been walking past when the movement caught his attention. Instinctively, he bent down, his fingers closing around the book just in time. Straightening up, he turns toward Olena, holding out the book. Their eyes meet. Olena's breath catches in her throat. A flicker of embarrassment washes over her face, her lips parting slightly as if to form an apology. There's a hint of surprise in her expression, mingled with a soft vulnerability. She isn't sure why, but the way Maksym looks at her, steadily, attentively, sends a pleasant warmth through her. Her heart pounds a little faster, the bookstore suddenly feeling smaller, more intimate. For Maksym, the moment is unexpectedly captivating. The way Olena's eyes widen slightly in surprise, the delicate flush on her cheeks, and the hesitant way she reaches for the book stir something deep within him. A spark, curiosity, intrigue, an undeniable pull. Time seems to stretch, the background noise fading as if the world has momentarily narrowed down to just the two of them. He isn't sure what it is about her, but he knows he wants to find out. As they exchange a few polite words, the conversation flows easily, despite the initial awkwardness. There's an unspoken understanding, a mutual interest simmering just beneath the surface. Before parting ways, they exchange contact information, the subtle excitement in Olena's voice mirrored by the quiet satisfaction in Maksym's gaze. Not one to let an opportunity slip away, Maksym wastes no time. Before they even leave the bookstore, he tilts his head slightly, a small yet confident smile playing at the corners of his lips. How about a cup of coffee sometime? I know a great place. Olena hesitates only for a heartbeat before nodding, a smile tugging at her own lips. I'd like that. And just like that, the first page of their story is written. The café is a hidden gem tucked away from the busy streets, its large windows slightly fogged from the contrast of the cool evening air outside and the warmth within. Soft golden lights cast a gentle glow over the wooden tables, creating a cozy, intimate atmosphere. The air is filled with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee, and the faint sweetness of pastries displayed in a glass case near the counter. A slow jazz tune hums quietly in the background, blending seamlessly with the quiet murmurs of other patrons. The entire space feels like a comforting embrace, perfect for an unhurried conversation. Olena sits at a small round table near the window, her fingers wrapped around a warm ceramic cup of tea. The steam rises in delicate swirls, carrying the soothing scent of chamomile and honey. Her long chestnut hair cascades over her shoulders in soft waves, a few stray strands framing her face. She absent-mindedly tucks one behind her ear as she looks at Maksym, her brown eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight on the table. Her light makeup, just a touch of mascara and a hint of blush, accentuates her natural beauty, giving her a fresh, effortless elegance. The glow from the café lights highlights the smooth contours of her face, making her look even more radiant. Maksym, seated across from her, leans slightly forward, resting his arms casually on the table. He wears a dark gray sweater that fits snugly, hinting at his athletic frame, the sleeves pushed up just enough to reveal his strong forearms. His gray eyes hold a quiet intensity as he listens to her, his expression open and attentive. The dim lighting casts subtle shadows over his face, making the light stubble on his jawline more pronounced. Every now and then his lips curve into a small smile as if he's savoring the moment, enjoying the sound of her voice as much as the conversation itself. Their words flow effortlessly as they share stories about their favorite books, the ones that have shaped them, the ones they return to time and time again. They discuss films that left a lasting impression, characters they loved, and endings that frustrated them. Their dreams spill into the conversation, places they wish to visit, things they still hope to achieve. There is no need for forced topics or polite small talk. Their exchange is natural, filled with curiosity and an eagerness to learn more about each other. At one point, Olena recalls a particularly funny memory from her childhood, an innocent but mischievous adventure involving her younger self, a mischievous puppy, and an unfortunate incident with a neighbor's flower bed. As she animatedly describes the chaos that ensued, Maksym throws his head back in laughter, the deep, warm sound echoing slightly in the quiet café. His gray eyes crinkle at the corners, his smile wide and genuine. He hasn't laughed like this in a long time, and it feels good, effortless, freeing. As Olena watches him, she feels an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest, an undeniable sense of comfort and happiness. She realizes she hasn't felt this at ease in a long time. There is no pressure to impress, no awkward silences, just the simple joy of being in someone's company and truly enjoying it. She takes a sip of her tea, letting the warmth seep into her as she silently marvels at how natural it all feels. Maksym, too, is struck by the realization that something about Olena is different. He has always been careful, guarded, but with her, there is no need for pretense. He can simply be himself. And with every passing minute, every shared smile, every stolen glance, he feels something shift within him, something he hadn't expected but welcomes all the same. The evening stretches on, neither of them wanting to leave just yet. Outside, the city continues its endless rhythm, but inside this small cafe, it's just the two of them, caught in a moment they both know they won't soon forget. The night air is crisp but pleasant as Olena and Maksym step out of the cozy cafe and onto the quiet city streets. The world around them seems softer in the evening glow, streetlights casting long golden reflections on the damp pavement, distant laughter echoing from a nearby square, the gentle hum of cars rolling past. The air carries a faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, mixing with the cool freshness of the river ahead. They walk side by side, their pace unhurried as if savoring the moment. The river stretches before them, dark and still, mirroring the glow of the city's lights. Each street lamp along the promenade creates shimmering golden ripples on the water's surface, as if the city itself is whispering secrets through its reflections. A soft breeze stirs Olena's hair, causing a few loose strands to brush against her face. She exhales, her breath turning into a fleeting mist in the cold air. Both are wrapped in warm scarves, the fabric shielding them from the chill of the night. Olena tucks her hands deep into the pockets of her coat, seeking warmth, while Maksym walks beside her, his hands loosely curled at his sides. For a moment he hesitates, stealing a quick glance at her. Then, with quiet determination, he extends his hand, palm up, an unspoken offer. His voice is steady but laced with a hint of shyness. "Here," he says, a small, almost sheepish smile touching his lips. "So you don't freeze." Olena hesitates just for a second, then slowly slides her hand into his. His fingers are warm against her cool skin, and the contact sends a soft jolt through her. Maksym's grip is firm yet gentle, his thumb brushing lightly against her knuckles as if to reassure her. She doesn't pull away. Instead, she lets herself enjoy the feeling of warmth. both from his hand and from something deeper that she can't quite name yet. As they walk, their conversation turns introspective. They speak of dreams, the ones they've chased, the ones they've let go of, and the ones they still hold close. The city moves around them, yet they feel as though they are in their own world, wrapped in words and quiet confessions. Maksym slows his steps, his gaze fixed ahead, though his thoughts seem elsewhere. Then, in a voice quieter than before, he says, "I used to think people couldn't be trusted." He exhales, as if releasing something that's been buried for too long. That if you let someone in, they'll just leave eventually. But he glances at her then, his gray eyes searching hers. "Now I want to take the risk." His words settle between them, lingering in the cool night air. Olena feels something deep inside her shift, like a lock being undone, a door creaking open. Her heart melts at his honesty, at the quiet vulnerability in his voice. But along with the warmth comes a familiar fear, one she's tried to suppress. The fear of getting hurt again. Her fingers instinctively tighten around his, and her eyes, shimmering under the glow of the streetlights, betray a storm of emotions. She wants to believe in this moment, in him, but doubts whisper in the back of her mind, reminding her of past wounds that haven't fully healed. Maksym notices the change in her expression, the slight hesitation, the flicker of uncertainty. His own heart beats faster. He hadn't meant to say something so weighty, but the words had escaped before he could stop them. Now, standing here watching her reaction, he realizes how much this moment matters. He doesn't want to scare her away, but he also doesn't want to hide how he feels. So he does the only thing he can. He holds her hand a little tighter, anchoring them both in the present. The city continues to glow around them, but for Olena and Maksym, time feels suspended. A fragile yet powerful understanding lingers between them, as if the night itself is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. It starts as an ordinary workday, emails, meetings, the familiar hum of keyboards and ringing phones filling the office space. Olena moves through her tasks with practiced efficiency, though her mind occasionally drifts to the peaceful evening she'd spent with Maksym just days before. The warmth of that memory lingers, a small comfort amidst the routine. But her sense of calm is shattered the moment she looks up and sees a familiar figure standing in the doorway. Ola. He is tall, well-dressed, and carries himself with the same confidence that once drew her to him, and later became unbearable. In his hands, he holds a bouquet of deep red roses, their scent heavy and overwhelming even from a distance. His lips curve into a practiced smile, but his dark eyes carry something unreadable. "Olena," he says smoothly, stepping forward. "We need to talk." A flicker of irritation crosses Olena's face, but beneath it, there's confusion. Why now? After all this time? She straightens in her chair, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Ola, this isn't the time or place." But he doesn't move. His posture remains relaxed, yet there's an insistence in his gaze, a quiet arrogance that makes her stomach tighten. "I just want 5 minutes," he says, lowering his voice, as if trying to appear considerate. "Please, Olena, just hear me out." The office around them feels suddenly smaller, the curious glances of her colleagues adding to the pressure. Her jaw clenches. She doesn't want a scene, but she also doesn't want this. Not here. Not now. With a sharp breath, she stands and gestures toward the hallway, her steps stiff as she leads him away from prying eyes. When she returns to her desk, the flowers remain, an unwelcome presence on the corner of her workspace. Their scent, once intoxicating, now feels suffocating. That evening, Olena walks home slowly, her thoughts tangled in a mess of emotions. The conversation with Ola replays in her mind. His apologies, his promises, the way he looked at her as if he still had some claim over her. She knows she doesn't owe him anything, but his sudden reappearance has shaken something loose inside her. She unlocks her apartment door and steps inside, closing it behind her with a tired sigh. The room is quiet, but her thoughts are anything but. She leans against the wall, running a hand through her hair, feeling emotionally drained. The weight of the day presses down on her chest, and for the first time in a long while, she feels truly alone. Then her phone buzzes. Maksym. For a moment, she just stares at the screen, her thumb hovering over the answer button. She wants to hear his voice, to feel the warmth he brings. But another part of her hesitates. She doesn't want to drag him into this. She doesn't want her past to spill into the fragile, beautiful thing they are building. She exhales sharply and finally answers. Hey. Her voice is distant, colder than she intends. Maksym on the other end immediately senses the shift. His usual easy tone is laced with concern. Hey. Everything okay? Yeah, she replies too quickly, the word clipped and unconvincing. She clears her throat and tries again. Just tired. There's a pause. She can almost hear him thinking, trying to read between the lines. Did something happen? He asks gently. She wants to tell him. Wants to let him in. But the words feel stuck in her throat. It's nothing, she says instead, forcing a weak smile even though he can't see it. Really? But Maksym hears the reluctance, the subtle way she's closing herself off. His stomach tightens. Just days ago, she had been open, laughing with him over coffee, letting him see parts of her she didn't share with just anyone. Now she feels distant, as if she's slipping away. He doesn't press her, though it takes effort to hold back. All right, he says slowly. But you know you can talk to me, right? I know, Olena murmurs, but her voice lacks conviction. They exchange a few more empty words before she ends the call, saying she needs to rest. When the line goes silent, Maksym is left staring at his phone, his fingers still gripping it tightly. Something is wrong. He can feel it. And for the first time since meeting Olena, doubt creeps in. He wonders if he did something wrong. If she regrets letting him in. If he's just another person she'll eventually push away. Outside, the city moves on, unaware of the quiet storm brewing in both of their hearts. Maksym spends the entire afternoon preparing. He wants tonight to feel special, not extravagant, just warm, inviting, and safe. A space where Olena can breathe, where whatever is weighing on her can fade, even if only for a while. He sets the small dinner table in his apartment, covering it with a deep blue linen cloth. 2 plates, polished silverware, and tall wine glasses are carefully arranged. In the center, 3 candles flicker, their soft glow casting golden reflections on the dark wood. A bottle of red wine sits open, breathing, next to a dish of pasta he made himself, a simple but comforting meal. The scent of garlic, basil, and simmered tomatoes fills the air, mingling with the faint cologne on his sweater. Low, instrumental jazz hums from the speakers, a quiet undercurrent to the night. Maksym glances around, satisfied. He wants this evening to bring back the lightness they had in the café, to remind her that he is here, that he's not going anywhere. When Olena arrives, she steps in hesitantly. She looks beautiful as always, her chestnut hair slightly tousled from the wind, her scarf still loosely wrapped around her neck. But there's something in her eyes, hesitation, doubt, an invisible wall between them. She offers a small, polite smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Wow, she murmurs, glancing at the table. You really went all out. Maksym chuckles softly, hoping to ease the tension. I just wanted to do something nice. Thought we could use a good meal. She nods and sits down, but as the evening unfolds, the weight between them only grows heavier. The conversation feels forced, the effortless back and forth they once had replaced by long silences. Maksym tries, he asks about her day, tells her a funny story from work, even makes a light-hearted joke about his questionable cooking skills. But Olena barely reacts. She picks at her food, takes small sips of wine, and keeps glancing at her hands as if lost in thought. Finally, Maksym sets down his fork and leans slightly forward, his voice gentle but firm. Olena. She looks up, startled. What's going on? He asks. You've been distant. I can feel it. She shifts in her seat, fingers tightening around her glass. I'm just tired, she says weakly. Maksym studies her for a long moment before speaking again. Do you trust me? Olena freezes. The directness of the question makes her stomach tighten. Maksym continues, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I don't mean just in a casual way. I mean really trust me. Enough to let me in. Enough to stop pushing me away. He exhales slowly. Are you ready to take this to the next level? The words feel too heavy. Too real. Panic surges in Olena's chest. Her heart pounds painfully as every fear she's been trying to suppress crashes into her at once. She wants to trust him, she likes him more than she ever expected, but the scars from the past still ache. The memories of heartbreak, of being abandoned, of losing herself in a relationship that ended in pain, they all come rushing back. She swallows hard. Her fingers tremble slightly as she grips the edge of the table. Then, before she can stop herself, she blurts out, I'm not sure if I'm even ready for this. The silence that follows is deafening. Maksym's expression barely changes, but something in his eyes darkens as if a door inside him is quietly closing. He nods slowly, processing her words. I see. Olena hates the way he says it, so calm, so restrained, as if he's holding something back. She can feel the air between them shifting, tension crackling like a storm about to break. Maksym, she starts, but he interrupts. I'm not asking for everything at once, he says, his voice now tinged with frustration. I just want to know that you're not going to shut me out. That you're not already planning your escape before we even try. She stands abruptly, pushing her chair back. It's not that simple. Her voice is louder now, her emotions unraveling. Then make me understand, he urges. Because right now it just feels like you're running. Olena's chest tightens painfully. She is running. But she doesn't know how to stop. She doesn't know how to be vulnerable without the fear of being hurt again. And suddenly it's all too much. I have to go, she whispers, grabbing her coat. Maksym stands too, reaching out as if to stop her, but then hesitates. He sees the conflict in her eyes, the fear, the uncertainty, the pain she doesn't know how to voice. And despite the ache in his chest, he lets his hand drop to his side. She rushes out the door, barely holding back the tears burning in her eyes. The cold air hits her like a slap, but she barely notices. Her heart is racing, her thoughts spiraling. She feels like she's losing control, like she's ruining something before it even has a chance to grow. Back inside, Maksym stays frozen in place, his fists clenched. His heart tightens painfully, but he forces himself to take a steadying breath. He won't chase her. Not yet. But he won't give up on her, either. For now, all he can do is wait. The dim glow of a lamp casts soft shadows in Olena's apartment. The air smells faintly of chamomile and honey, the remnants of a tea she never finished. An open book lies in front of her, its pages untouched for the past hour. Her fingers absent-mindedly trace the spine, but her mind is elsewhere. The apartment, with its warm blankets and flickering candles, should feel comforting, yet an unsettling emptiness lingers in her heart. Outside, snow drifts lazily from the sky, settling against the frosty windowpane. She watches as the delicate flakes melt upon contact, disappearing like fleeting moments. Her breath fogs the glass as she exhales, lost in thought. Meanwhile, in a quiet park across the city, Maksym walks alone. His steps are slow, deliberate as the fresh snow crunches beneath his boots. The cold air bites at his face, but he barely notices. His hands are stuffed deep into his jacket pockets, his shoulders slightly hunched. His thoughts are entirely on Olena. The memory of her lingers in his mind, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the quiet intensity in her eyes when she spoke about things that mattered to her, the warmth of her laughter on that first evening in the café. He had seen the fear in her eyes last night. The way she ran, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much and didn't know how to handle it. It frustrates him, but more than that, it hurts. He just wants to be close to her. But what if she never lets him in? Back in her apartment, Olena closes her eyes and leans her head against the window. She recalls the moment their hands accidentally brushed in the bookstore, the way his gray eyes locked onto hers as he handed her the fallen book. She remembers how effortlessly they talked on their first date, the way he made her feel safe as they walked along the river, the sincerity in his voice when he told her he wanted to take the risk of trusting someone again. A lump rises in her throat. She's afraid of being hurt again, of letting someone in only to lose them. But as she sits there, staring at the swirling snow outside, she realizes something terrifying. She fears losing Maksym more than she fears her past wounds. Maksym reaches an old wooden park bench and lowers himself onto it with a sigh. The snow beneath him is undisturbed, proof that no one has sat there for hours. He leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees, gazing up at the darkening sky. The city lights flicker in the distance, but his thoughts remain on one person. His phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out and sees a message from his friend, Danilo. A simple check-in. Maksym hesitates for a moment before calling him. Danilo picks up almost immediately. Maksym? You okay? Maksym exhales slowly, watching his breath cloud in the winter air. I don't know, man. His voice is quiet but heavy. I don't know what to do. She's important to me, but I can feel her pulling away. And I don't want to push her, but he trails off, rubbing his hands together for warmth. On the other end of the line, Danilo is silent for a moment before speaking. If she's important to you, let her know. But don't push her. People need time to open up. Maksym closes his eyes, letting the words sink in. His fingers tighten around his phone, his breath steadying. Time. He can give her that. When he finally stands, his posture is different. His exhaustion remains, but beneath it there's something else, determination. He won't give up on her, not yet. At the same time, Olena wraps her arms around herself, staring at her reflection in the window. She feels torn, as if two halves of her are at war, the part of her that wants to run and the part that longs to stay. Her fingers hover over her phone. She isn't ready to say everything. Not yet. But she doesn't want to lose him. And that realization scares her most of all. The evening air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of snow and burning wood from distant chimneys. Maksym stands in front of Olena's apartment door, exhaling deeply. His fingers tighten around the book in his hands, her favorite one, the very same classic she had reached for on that fateful day in the bookstore. The one that had slipped from her grasp, bringing them together for the first time. The cover is slightly worn, the pages soft from years of love and rereading. He had spent the afternoon searching for the exact edition she loved, the one she had once described with a nostalgic smile. Now, standing here with it, he feels his heart pound. He knocks. Moments later, the door opens and there she is, Olena, wrapped in a thick sweater, her chestnut hair slightly tousled, her brown eyes widening in surprise at the sight of him. She looks tired but undeniably beautiful, as if she's been lost in thought for hours. Without a word, Maksym holds up the book. Her breath catches. "I can't just leave this as it is," he says, his voice steady despite the emotions running through him. His gray eyes search hers, filled with both desperation and hope. "I won't force you into anything, Olena. But I need you to know I'm here. And I'm not walking away unless you tell me to." For a long moment, she says nothing. Her gaze drops to the book in his hands, the same story she had always turned to for comfort. The symbol of the moment their paths first crossed. A deep, shuddering breath escapes her lips, and then, suddenly, tears well up in her eyes. The walls she had built so carefully, the ones she thought were strong enough to keep her safe, begin to crack. She presses her fingers against her mouth, as if trying to hold back the emotions threatening to spill over. Maksym watches her, his heart aching at the sight of her vulnerability. He doesn't reach for her, doesn't push, he simply waits, letting her feel everything she needs to feel. A tear slips down her cheek, but this time it's not just from fear. It's something else. Something warmer. Overwhelmed by the depth of his patience, his kindness, and his quiet persistence, she feels something shift inside her. A realization. She doesn't want to lose this man. Her lips tremble, but then, through the tears, a faint, almost hesitant smile appears. It's small, fragile, but it's real. Maksym sees it and something in his chest loosens. Relief floods through him, along with something even stronger, love. He doesn't need her to say anything right now. He doesn't need grand promises or certainty. All he needs is this moment. The quiet, unspoken understanding that she is willing to try. And for him, that's enough. "I'll wait," he says softly, his voice full of warmth. "For as long as you need." And for the first time in a long while, Olena believes that maybe, just maybe, she doesn't have to run anymore. The festival is alive with color and warmth despite the crisp winter air. Strings of twinkling lights wrap around tree branches like delicate golden threads, casting a soft glow over the bustling crowd. The scent of roasted chestnuts, caramelized apples, and cinnamon lingers in the air as people stroll through the cobblestone paths, their breath forming small clouds in the cold. Children laugh near a small carousel, and the sound of a violin blends with the strumming of a guitar as street musicians fill the evening with lively melodies. Olena stands near a wooden stand decorated with tiny lanterns, her white coat making her look almost ethereal under the warm festival lights. A gentle breeze lifts strands of her chestnut hair as she scans the crowd, searching for him. Her fingers are tucked into her pockets, but there's a lightness in her posture different from before. Tonight, she feels something new. Hopeful. Excited. And then she sees him. Maksym, dressed in his dark blue jacket, weaves through the crowd with an easy stride, his gray eyes locking onto hers the moment he spots her. A small smile tugs at his lips as he approaches, holding out a steaming cup of hot chocolate. "For you," he says, his voice warm as he places it gently in her hands. Olena accepts it with a soft smile, her fingers brushing against his as she takes the cup. The touch is brief but lingering, and for the first time, she doesn't pull away. The warmth of the drink seeps into her palms, but it's the quiet comfort of his presence that truly chases away the cold. They walk side by side through the festival, their footsteps in sync as they move past vibrant stalls filled with handmade trinkets and colorful sweets. They stop to try chocolate-dipped strawberries, laughing as Olena playfully smears a bit of chocolate on Maksym's nose. He shakes his head in amusement, wiping it off with a chuckle. At a small performance area, a street comedian tells a series of terrible jokes, his exaggerated expressions making up for the lack of wit. Maksym groans at the punchlines, shaking his head, but Olena surprises herself by laughing. Not out of politeness, but because, for the first time in so long, she feels light. Free. As they continue walking, Olena steals a glance at Maksym, watching the way he looks at her, not with expectation, not with impatience, but with something steady and real. She realizes how good it feels to be by his side, how natural it is to simply enjoy the moment without fear weighing her down. She exhales, releasing a breath she didn't even realize she had been holding. Maksym notices the change in her. The way her brown eyes shine brighter tonight, the way her laughter no longer carries hesitation. It's in the way she walks, lighter, as if she's finally letting go of something that has held her back for too long. And in that moment, he knows. Their bond has grown stronger. A deep sense of joy fills him, not just because he's here with her, but because she's finally allowing herself to be here with him. And for Maksym, there's no greater gift than that. The soft light of the late afternoon filters through the curtains, casting a warm, golden glow over the room. On the table, a job offer letter lies neatly, its stark white envelope contrasting against the wooden surface. The offer represents everything Olena has worked for, a significant step in her career, a chance to push herself further. But at this moment, it feels like more than just a piece of paper. Olena sits on the couch, her legs tucked underneath her, dressed in a cozy sweater and jeans. Her gaze flickers between the letter and the window as if the answer to her uncertainty is hiding somewhere in the shifting light outside. The weight of the decision rests heavily on her shoulders. She feels excited but also hesitant, like two opposing forces pulling her in different directions. Maksym stands by the window, his back to her, holding a cup of coffee in one hand. The steam rises in gentle swirls, but his focus is elsewhere. His mind is on the words that Olena will say next, on the moment that has been hanging in the air between them for weeks. Olena breaks the silence. Her voice is soft, but the question she asks feels immense. "I got a job offer," she begins, her fingers tracing the edges of the letter as if trying to decipher it before it's even opened. "It's an important opportunity for me, but I don't know how it will affect us." Maksym doesn't turn around immediately. Instead, he looks out the window, his expression unreadable. For a few seconds, the room is quiet, save for the faint sound of the wind rustling outside. He swallows, trying to gather his thoughts, his emotions swirling in a mix of pride for her and fear of the unknown. Finally, he turns to face her, his gray eyes steady, but there's an unmistakable vulnerability in his voice. "You should go if that's what you want," he says, his words slow and deliberate as if weighing each one carefully. "We'll manage." But his eyes betray him, showing a flicker of pain. His voice cracks slightly when he adds, almost in a whisper, "But I'm scared of losing you." Olena's heart tightens at the sight of him. The mix of love, fear, and uncertainty in his gaze makes her feel like she's standing on the edge of something big, something life-changing. She can see how much he's trying to be strong, trying to support her decision, but she also feels the weight of his fear pressing against her. The excitement she had felt earlier about the job offer is now tangled with the reality of what it could mean for their relationship. The distance that might come between them, the time apart, the changes that could unravel everything they've built so far. She takes a deep breath, her chest tightening with conflicting emotions. "I'm excited," she admits, her voice quieter now. "But I don't know what it means for us. What if it pulls us apart?" Maksym steps closer, placing his coffee cup down on the windowsill and kneeling in front of her. His hand reaches out, resting on hers. His touch is warm and steady, a reassurance she needs in this moment of uncertainty. "I don't want to lose you, Olena," he says, his voice low but full of sincerity. "But I also don't want to hold you back. If this is what you need, I'll be here. I'll wait. But just know, it scares me." Olena feels a lump form in her throat, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She wants to leap into this opportunity, to chase her dreams, but the fear of losing what they have is overwhelming. Maksym's unwavering support makes her feel torn between her ambition and the love that's blooming between them. The room feels heavy with all the unsaid words, all the things that neither of them know how to answer yet. But for the first time, Olena understands something important. No matter what choice she makes, she won't be making it alone. Maksym will be there, even if it means waiting. The platform is quiet, save for the occasional hum of the train's engine and the distant chatter of other passengers. The train, sleek and ready to depart, stands at the platform, its doors wide open as if waiting to carry Olena to her new adventure. The cold air bites gently at her skin, but her warmth comes from within, an overwhelming mix of excitement and sorrow. Olena stands tall beside the train, her suitcase resting beside her. She's dressed in a stylish coat, the soft fabric of which seems to shield her from the cold. Her red scarf, bright against the neutral tones of her coat, drapes over her shoulders, fluttering slightly in the breeze. There's a quiet determination in her posture, even as her heart tugs with the heaviness of the separation. Maksym stands next to her, his hand firmly holding hers. His eyes are focused on her face, taking in every detail as though he wants to memorize this moment. In his other hand, he holds the book, the one they had talked about on that first, unforgettable day in the bookstore. The very symbol of their connection, the thread that had bound them together in a whirlwind of emotion and understanding. Olena feels a bittersweet sadness as she looks up at him. The distance between them feels too real, too soon. Yet, there's something deeper in her chest, something that grounds her, the belief that love, their love, can withstand the miles. She turns to face him fully, her eyes shining with unshed tears, but her smile is steady, full of faith and warmth. "I know this is only temporary," she says softly, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "We are stronger than this." Maksym looks at her, his heart aching, but his gaze unwavering. He wants to tell her that everything will be fine, that the distance won't matter. But the truth is, he knows it won't be easy. There will be days of longing, moments of doubt. Yet, he also knows that the bond they share is too strong to be shaken by time or space. Olena kisses him, her lips soft and full of promise, and for a moment, everything else fades away. The noise of the station, the uncertainty of the future, nothing matters except this kiss, this quiet exchange of love and trust. As she steps back, the whistle of the train signals that it's time. She takes a final, lingering look at Maksym, her heart full of warmth, and then boards the train. Maksym watches her as the train doors close, the moment stretching out as though time itself is holding its breath. The train slowly begins to move, pulling away from the platform, and Olena's figure grows smaller with each passing second. He stands there, frozen for a moment, his hands still holding the book, feeling the weight of the goodbye. Then, slowly, he opens it. His fingers brush against the familiar pages, and inside, tucked carefully between the leaves, is a note. The words are simple, but they resonate deeply. Love isn't about distance. It's a feeling that is always near. I love you. Maksym's heart skips a beat as he reads the note. He feels a lump in his throat, but the warmth of her words fills him with a sense of peace. She's right. Love is more than proximity. It's a connection that transcends space and time. He closes the book gently, tucking it into his coat pocket. His face softens into a calm, prideful smile. His love for her is unwavering. The train is just a tiny speck now, disappearing into the distance, but Maksym knows that their love will endure. He watches it fade until the tracks are empty, standing tall on the platform with the quiet strength of someone who knows that the challenges ahead are just another part of their journey. With the note in his heart, the book in his pocket, and her love inside him, he feels a sense of hope that no distance, no time apart, will ever change what they have. And as the last traces of the train vanish from sight, Maksym lets out a slow, contented breath. He's not afraid. Because, in his heart, he knows their love is stronger than any challenge.